Hoe ontketen je de kracht van mensen in organisaties? People Power brengt je de laatste wetenschappelijke inzichten en praktijkvoorbeelden. Over leiderschap en leren, betrokkenheid en bevlogenheid, inzetbaarheid en inclusie. Omdat mensen het verschil maken in jouw organisatie. People Power met Glenn van der Burg.
As organizations grow and expand internationally, onboarding becomes a global operation, especially when frequent acquisitions are involved. This presents a significant challenge. How do you ensure that an onboarding program works effectively across different countries and different cultures? And how do you not only welcome new colleagues, but also create a sense of connection for existing employees during mergers and major transitions? We have 3 guests in the studio. Kris, Doveika, he's a digital learning lead at Domus. Alexandra, Popescu, she's onboarding leader at HP, which we all know. And Félix, Valverde, senior manager, digital associate experience at PVH. And I think that's the company behind a lot of big brands that we all know, like Tommy Hilfiger,
Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein.
We know them. And we're recording this episode at Onboard Amsterdam, the largest onboarding event in Europe. So you'll probably hear some noise in the background. That's all the people exchanging these great ideas that are flying around all over this place. Thanks, Kris, Alexandra, and Félix for having you here in the studio. About this onboarding across different countries and cultures, I want to ask all of you, so you can already think in your mind what you would like to share. What are the main lessons that you have learned in this, I think, quite a big challenge that you have, doing it in such a large scale? Alexandra, starting with you.
Thank you. That's a very great question that I'm always asked. How do I keep track of a global mindset when we implement at such a large scale? And the answer is you involve the local people. And our culture has always been the center of everything that we did, and our founding fathers were always involving other people, other nationalities. So this is the secret sauce. You involve the local people to add to a global mindset, tools, resources, the local experience, the local flavor of the experience.
And how do you choose what to do globally? What do you put into the system, not only in the process but also content-wise? And what do you choose to leave in the specific countries or within the specific cultures?
Another great question. And how we took that decision at that point was what's relevant for all employees to know, even if they're in Bucharest, if they're in Palo Alto, Guadalajara, whatever. So that was how we decided to create the global content, what everybody should know. And in terms of local content, what's the flavor of the location? How, for example, where's the cafeteria on the site? What's something very popular that an employee might be doing in that site? What are some of the interests of the local teams? Is there something around the diversity of that group that they are involved in, networking events, activities? So we've enabled those type of experiences through other stakeholders, so it's relevant for both a global perspective and a local experience as well.
Yeah, Kris, your organization Domus is also working around the globe.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it, but you are a really big organization. I saw 5,500 employees,
exactly.
Enormous amount of assets
of
that you are managing. So unbelievable.
Absolutely, and I just heard what my colleague said, and it's I just can't attest. I need to attest to that, because involving local people is actually, I think, the biggest answer. Because if you find something that's familiar for you, once you look at that content, that immediately allows you to feel welcomed, immediately allows you to feel confident about where you're heading, and it reduces stress quite a lot on those days, day 1, day 2, day 3, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing where to grab a lunch, right? Knowing what bus stop is nearby, knowing, what facilities are around you. Maybe you have a break, you want to, just go do some shopping or something like that. Knowing that actually is very, very good when you're a new hire in a new company.
Yeah. And how do you then ensure that these local things really happen? because it also, I can imagine that it also depends on the enthusiasm or the responsibility that your local colleagues will feel in doing a great job at that part of the onboarding.
So, at least from my standpoint, I think that two key things are in play here. So one is stakeholders, right? So who's going to help you maintain that information locally? That is a big part, but they need a tool to actually give that information. So whether you're using an LMS, whether you're using something like Apical, for example, what we use, right? It's you need that technology to support those locals that can help you develop the content.
Yeah, so the locals are for the content, maybe also for the connection, I can imagine.
Absolutely.
Because of course you connect with a big corporation on a maybe a brand level.
Yeah.
But you go to lunch with your colleagues.
At the same time, you always have someone who's directing the site, right? Knowing that person from the moment you start, it's very important, because you'll see that person on and on and on and on in every single meeting that you have a town hall, etc., etc. So knowing who's the site leadership, knowing what is the HR team, knowing their contacts, even before you start, knowing where to go to if your laptop doesn't start on day one, right? It is a big thing.
Yeah, the laptops. I mean, this is podcast number 6. The laptop keeps coming back as one of the biggest problems that we have. But HP has a great solutions for that. So I see a business case.
Yes, and at HP, employees do set up their laptops on their own, because we're self-service. You're not handed a laptop or anything. And that's what Kris said. That's very important to know where to get support at the local site. And I can give you an example around something really beautiful that a new employee said. So you might be hired in a location and you might be the only one in that business unit. So they attended a face-to-face orientation, and because they created such an amazing connection with the group, they said, this was major for me, and they decided to stay with the company because they found likewise individuals, even if they were part of a different organization.
Yeah.
So I have goosebumps when I'm talking about this, because this is why I'm doing, and I'm loving what I'm doing.
I can imagine, yeah. Félix, how do you... Next to the local connection, the local people, of course, where your new hires are working together with them on a daily basis, you also want to establish a connection especially in your case, with the brand. What kind of company are you working for? What are the values? Also, how do we maybe want people to interact with each other? What kind of norms do we have? How do you do that from PVH?
Well, I think PVH has a very good position to say our products are easy to feel represented because we wear them. Like we have.
You do that now. You're wearing it right now.
I'm doing it, of course. I'm always
Look
branded.
great, by the way.
Thank you so much. But that was also it's a Spanish or Mexican expression to say like wear the T-shirt when you say like when you want to be connected to the company. So for me, it's literally like I wear my company, right? So that's a very easy connection. But I think something that we really care about is that our employees, all of our associates around the world, see the brand a lot. So that's why around our beautiful campus and offices, we have a lot of displays. We have a lot of showrooms. They're right there so that you can also see the new collections. So you can really have the feeling of the vibe. And also for us in the fashion industry, the product life cycle. So going through the season is so important. So we definitely want to reflect that. Like something that it's a very simple perk, it's a benefit, but I love it, is for example, in our cafeteria, we have seasonal drinks that matches in a way the vibe of also the seasons that we have in our products, right? So we had a very basic one, the pumpkin spice latte. Everybody knows it, and if you are myself, I'm a big fan of the pumpkin spice latte. It's reflecting the autumn season.
You're
that we have.
You're not having that in spring or summer, no?
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think we do very well with our products and the way that we transfer it to our associates, not just literally like just the products itself, but it's a whole vibe around our offices and our campus. That's very important for us.
And you call them associates.
Yeah, that's the thing. So we're retail, right? So retail is, I would say, a more common term. And of course, we are a lot of people like myself sitting in an office, but actually our biggest population is retail. And we want to give the spotlight to them because that's why we're here, actually. Yeah. They're driving the business a lot. So that's why we refer to them internally more as associates than employees. So apologize if I'm using that same term here and there.
And you both have it. Like HP makes things that you can see and touch, a lot of things that you can't see and touch, by the way, also. But does that help? Does it help you to, in your case, Felix, that you're making something that you can even put on, that you can wear, that you also can give to your new hires? I mean, if you start working somewhere for one of these well-known brands, and you get the Calvin Klein underwear to wear at your first day, I mean, that's a perk that you have. That's maybe easier also than, well, with Kris. I can imagine that you say, "Oh, this is your first work day. We have some assets for you. Here you are."
We actually do have some assets. In some cases, yeah, that's preferred. However, it's a bit of a different.
Can't match a Calvin Klein underwear.
Exactly. For an accountant, you approach it differently in this case. So
yeah.
So it's that I want to call it merch. I don't know why, but it's just kind of a nature of the thing. But that merchandise basically that you give, of course, it creates even a bigger I want to say attraction to the company, but that connection with the company. So like Felix said, you can wear it actually if you get a T-shirt, for example, you can really become a brand ambassador.
Yeah. How do you make choices in that? Because I mean, you have multiple brands, so. How do you choose what to do with, especially with the associates that don't work for one brand but work for more brands?
Yeah, I mean, there's no really like a written rule to say you have to choose one side, right? Especially as you said, we are like myself, I am from PBH corporate, right? So that means both Tommy Hilfiger, I serve both Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. There are employees who are just for one brand, so I think that one is more directive. But for us, there is no really like a specific rule. Like someone once told me like, yeah, it's not so nice if you combine both of them. So if I will be wearing a Tommy t-shirt and Calvin jeans, somehow it doesn't really work. I don't know.
Really?
It was just a comment that a colleague made me. Actually, I don't think it's something official.
Customers do that.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So
you don't walk into a shop and they say, "Well, no, you can't buy that. You're wearing Tommy pants. You can't buy a Calvin."
100%. No, I don't think that's the case. To be fair, it's just a comment that somebody made internally. But it's really, it's completely free and up to people. And I mean, also, if you're gonna use for whatever reason a different brand, that's also, we always say, okay, look into something neutral, right? Wouldn't come to, myself at least, I wouldn't come to the office with our competition clothes, that's for sure. But also in myself, I'm very engaged with the brand and the company, so that's not even a challenge for me.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk to you about is big corporations also do mergers, do acquisitions, buying new smaller companies to integrate into the business. That's also, I can imagine, a very complicated way of onboarding, because normally it's just one person and they tend to mold themselves to the bigger culture. But when you get a whole company inside a new company, that can be quite challenging, I can imagine. So, Alexandra, have you had
mergers and acquisitions.
Have you had experience with that?
Yes, we actually just onboarded beginning of November a new merger, but the biggest merger and acquisition we've had was Poly in 2023, when we welcomed more than 3,000 people on the same day. And the success was really embedding and understanding how our culture were similar, so they could understand when joining HP, their leadership deciding to join HP, how these cultures work together. And I remember their day one coming, and our program, it's called HP Wayfinder, from the HP Ways, again, connected to the culture. And I saw a slide and about feedback, and half of it contained HP Wayfinder was great for us. I could see how it's important to be here and how this decision was really influencing for the best organization. So is that one of the things to do, to look for the things that you have in common, to look for similarities, yes,
and not really
and
pushing down all your own norms and values?
That, I think, was the best practice that we've took from several mergers and acquisitions that we've had before Poly, and that was the feedback that we've heard from those employees. We want to know how the cultures interconnect, and also I think we've learned through the years that parts of our program or the entire program can work, but just to make sure, we're asking, how do you feel if we're going to be assigning a body for each individual or a group of bodies for a group of people, not necessarily push everything that we have, but what makes sense. For example, the app, Apical, we use Apical. The app course was the vessel from which we've shared the culture, what's relevant and important for them. So we chose our battles. This is what I might say when you're doing any type of hiring, any type of merger and acquisition, anything. Choose your battle and make sure you know your audience so you can customize that experience.
Yeah, and it also, you have to make sure that the system that you're using, the way of working that you're using, that it is really flexible. That you can say, okay, for this situation or these new hires or this new acquisition, probably we just use these parts.
Because, and to your point, because they still are doing business as usual. Their scope is not changing. The way of doing things might change. And hence you need to make sure if you're inviting them to a virtual orientation, maybe push it a bit later in their experience so they can adjust a little bit with even changing the email address, which can be a big change also in identity and everything. So we've learned, we've experienced, we've learned through the entire cycle of mergers and acquisitions we've had. But yeah, that's a different kind of project that you're handling differently.
Yeah. Kris, what's your experience with that?
So in this case, we actually approach the mergers very similarly as for example, local content. So we do utilize Apical. As for local content, where you focus on, let's say, something, where you're going to grab lunch. In this case, you're talking about a separate course for the merger. Tackling basically to what Alexandra said, right? Tackling the main things to choose the battles and tackling the main things that would be, relevant for the merger. That wouldn't be all about, hey, look, we're this company, we're something amazing, we just acquired you. You want to avoid that. You really want to choose your battle and be careful about the wording, because even something like to Alexandra, what you said, changing an email, right? It sounds simple, but it's muscle memory. You add it everywhere. You add at something dot something, right? So changing that muscle memory is a big change, right? Because you'll eventually get probably 5 wrong password screens or wrong something screens, where you need to add the email. So really being careful about the wording, being careful about the content, not to overflow it with, hey, look, we're this big company that acquired you. Yeah. And just really tailoring that to fit the need. I think that's the key answer on making this kind of a smoother process in general.
Yeah, and feeding the elephant in small pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Starting out with the things that are most important to your new colleagues, instead of turning it around and saying, okay, we're going to now force feed all the information to you.
Absolutely. I think, again, if you focus on the similarities, like, for example, I don't know, what are the company goals, mentality, mindset, all those things, all those pillars that unify, and then going into more of a tailored content specifically for the company, for the acquisition, is how you basically devour that elephant.
Yeah. Felix, what do you want to add to that?
I mean, in my current role with PBH, we haven't had that experience. Also, I call myself fairly new to PBH.
You have just been onboarded.
Yeah, exactly. So not really any purchase acquisition here, there, but I can, if I may speak more general topics based on previous experiences. With my previous employer, we did have an acquisition and we did look into also the similarities, but for us was more important the different pieces that are crucial to onboard the people in the culture of the company, because without saying names, it was a fashion company also, but in the sports related, and they acquired an app, so technology, but also for sports. Okay. So both are sports. That's our linking point, right? That's the easy, let's say, win. But then how do you change from a tech company of sports to a more fashion retail company of sport? That was the tricky and the interesting part, and really thinks about the values, right? Because again, both are sports, so competitive, it's kind of a thing in within the company from both sides, but also the way that you make the competition, it's different. And one was really specialized in just only one sport, which was running, and the company itself had several different pieces, right? So it was also about, okay, good that you're passionate about running. That's already good for what you were doing right now. But as you are emerging to the whole ecosystem, maybe try something out and learn something new, and maybe you will find a new favorite hobby and pastime. Why not?
Yeah.
So that was something that was very crucial during that experience that we had. And similar to the email, I think something for me, it's still kind of in my head, that when we were asking them for an identification, they were saying their employee ID, and I was like, wow, I have not heard an employee ID in such a long time. I think it's still relevant for us, especially in my current role. That's like technical piece for processes, for technology, for when you put your number into SAP, Workday, SuccessFactors, whatever you want to have. But really on a daily identification, we use names, right? But for them, because I guess technical, more tech kind of a company, they were really referring to themselves almost by just a number. It was like, hey, you're more than a number, so please allow me to know your first name.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That is then a different culture that you encounter.
For sure.
All right. To finish up, I would like to ask all of you to come up with a great tip, some wisdom that you have acquired in the last few years in your job, looking at these global challenges that you have with onboarding. Starting with Kris.
Oh my God, you put me on the spot here.
Yeah, but the fun thing is you're the first, so you have all the possibilities.
We will say like Kris.
Yeah.
So I think I've heard a very nice quote. I hope that I can recall it. It's a very short one, but if you're not changing it, you're choosing it. So if you see something wrong and you're not doing anything to change it, you're actually choosing that wrong process and proceeding with that going forward. So to me, change is about everything, basically. And if you're thinking about changing a company, if you're thinking about changing a process, a tool, anything, it starts with you actually making that choice to change. So to me, that was the biggest one, probably biggest revelation, even though it's simple, yet it's quite complex in its own manner.
Yeah, because if you have a creative mindset, you see a lot of things that you think, we can do better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That
make
actually...
a list, then make a list.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do everything at the same time. All right. Alexandra.
I will pick up on what Kris said, because my biggest learning is ask the stakeholders, the ones who you've created the experience for, how it is for them at that moment. And the experience that you think right now it's 100% perfect might not be the same in a month, 2 months, 3 months. And based on that, my biggest finding is agile methodology and using it in choosing again your battles, what to tackle based on the feedback that those stakeholders have provided to you. So ask the people to make for you to help you to make the decisions where to choose to invest your resources.
Wow. Yeah. Great one. And you're also telling us you're never ready. If you think you've hit it perfect tomorrow, then you probably have to change something.
No, exactly, because at that point, what Kris said, I love that if you're making a decision, this is a product, you're not keeping up with the trends. AI, for example, it's going to change, so that's the buzzword. So if you're going to keep your experience, no matter if it's onboarding, whatever, as it is right now, without including what's relevant and the big elephant in the room, it won't be relevant as you're moving further.
Thanks for that. And finally, Félix.
I'm going to be a little controversial because
I love that.
this is a conference
Stop
hosted...
onboarding.
No, never. I mean, this conference is hosted by Apicor. It's a tech company, right? So, but my recommendation is actually don't put everything just on the tech journey. Like a lot of companies look into this and say onboarding or employee experience or employee life cycle is a tech journey. It's a tech journey. You can have the best car in the world, but if you don't know how to drive it, if you don't know how to use it, you're going to crash it. So even if you have the best technology, if you have Apical or whatever technology you're embracing, AI and so much, if you don't have your basics covered, your processes, knowing how to engage with the local people, the differences between your locations, both geographical and also organizational wise, then most likely, even with the best technology, this is still not going to be a successful project. So really not put everything in technology. Other things matter a lot.
Well, that was a great final tip, and I interviewed Talia Bauer earlier on, and one of the main things that she said is that if you want to make people if you want to help people make a connection, just put them together, serve them a nice meal, and that's maybe the best way to make sure that connections start happening. So, and that's very low tech. Thanks very much for being here, for sharing your knowledge at the end of this this event. I think we'll go for drinks. Almost, it's almost time. You've been listening to Kris, Doveika from Alter Domus, Alexandra Popescu from HP, and Félix Valverde from PVH. And thank you for listening to these podcasts. We made 6 in total, so if you have not listened to all of them, you can have some more to listen to. And thanks for that. And until next time.
Meer afleveringen vind je op peoplepower.radio en jouw favoriete podcast-app.